Hey there, I'm Christy again, back with another tips and tricks video. Today we're going to talk about making spines, but when you're working on a series. So if I'm going to make a series, I always like to try to make all the spines at the same time. I do this by finding an image, ideally, that contains all the spines lined up. This way, when you go to make them, they end up looking nice and coordinated together, rather than making them one at a time. So here, for this example, I have the picture of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, which not only has 5 different spines, but ideally they're meant to line up across to make one giant image, which looks really nice when you go to make them as mini books. So I've got this image. I just Googled Percy Jackson and the Olympians book spines and ended up tracking this one down. So now what I would do is simply just look at the book sizes that I need to make each one. So for this series, it ends up being all 4s and 1 3. So the 3 size is going to be this second book here. It's got a slightly skinnier spine, and then I made all the rest a 4. So that means I am going to make all the 4 spines 0.28 width, but I'm going to make the 3 spine a 0.23 width. But they're all going to be the same height. So the first tip is definitely hit Control-C or Command-C to get started. That way you can continuously paste it later on. So I'm going to hit Control-C, and then I'm just going to crop away. So I'm going to crop each spine just one at a time. And sometimes I like to crop both sides or one side. It just kind of depends on how I want to make it look centered. So I'm just going to keep hitting Control-V or Command-V, and just copying the picture over and over and cropping each one until I get all 5. Okay, once you get all 5, then I just like to go ahead and size all of them. So like I said, most of them are going to be a 0.28 width. So I'm going to go ahead and do those 4 that are going to be 0.28 width. And then the last one, the little skinnier one, is going to be 0.23 width. So then what I like to do, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. I just like to line them up next to each other as if they were printed and displayed as mini books. So if you look here, and you glance at it as one giant image, it lines up really nicely, so there's not really any major disconnects between the spines. So when you go to print these as mini books, it's going to look really great displayed as spines out. So that's just kind of what I like to do there. If you had any that didn't look great, like let's say for example, I'm going to pull this over. So let's say for example you have this break between 2 spines. You just kind of need to double click on them and just move them around just to make sure that they're lined up nice. But this turned out pretty well on the first try, so that's kind of what I would do. And then I would just go ahead and grab the front and back cover for each one. But this way at least I know that my spines are all nice and lined up. One other example is this Harry Potter image here that I found. So the Harry Potter series is a different height than the other one, so these are all 1.5. And there's 3 different sizes going on here. So I have 2 mediums, 2 larges, and then I have an extra large. So you know what? Actually, I believe there's 4 sizes here. So there are 4 sizes. So we're going to do medium, large, extra large, and then extra, extra large. So when there's 4 sizes going on, it's the same deal as the last one. So I'm going to hit Control-C, and I'm just simply going to go ahead and crop all these as individual spines to get started. So this first 2 here, the first 2 books in the series are going to be considered a size 9. So those are going to have 0.28 wide spines. This next one is going to be considered a size 10 because it's just slightly larger. And if you were making your books, you would have all of the size references that you would need. This next one is going to be the next size up, which is size 11. And then the 5th book is the largest size we carry, which is size 12. So it's extra, extra large. So I'm just going to do these last 2 here. We've got another size 10 and another size 11. So these ones don't make a complete image like the Percy Jackson series did. However, I definitely want to make sure that they all look the same and they're nice and lined up as far as all of the elements go, like the author and the symbol at the bottom and whatnot. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before, and I'm going to size them all first. So I'm going to size these first two as the same, which is the 0.28. And these are all 1.5 tall. This next one was a large, so that's 0.33. And again, you would have the reference as you were doing this, so you wouldn't need to have these numbers in your brain. Largest one is that 0.48. And then I'm just going to size these last two here. Okay, so I have them all lined up in size now. And so the first thing I like to do is just kind of glance across and see how well lined up they look and see if there's anything that bothers me as far as the overall aesthetic of the series. So for example, one thing that sticks out to me right away is that these first two books don't have the year, whereas the other 5 do. And also this very first book has JK on it, but none of the rest do. So one quick fix for this first one here is to simply double click on it and go ahead and just stretch it out a little bit. And then you can cut out basically that JK. And so now they all just have Rowling at the top. So that's one fix. If the year were to bother you, you would just simply need to find those two spines on their own and just try and find one that has the year on it. So when I quickly Google Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets book spine, for example, I'm going to kind of glance around here. So here's one here that has the years on them. So maybe I'm going to copy this one instead. It also doesn't have the JK issue that the other one did. So let's go ahead and crop this one instead. Everything else about it matches. So it's got the symbol at the bottom. It's got the word Scholastic. So this kind of works a little bit better with the whole general aesthetic of the series. So then I'm just going to redo that first one. Don't have to worry about the JK this time. Oops. Okay, so then just going to resize that one back down. Get rid of the old one. And then let's say, for example, you liked the ones in that image better altogether. You could use that image instead. Sometimes that happens. You end up finding something better partially through the process. So glancing one more time, the only other thing I see that is aesthetically different, I'm going to raise this one up just a little bit so that the year matches slightly better as far as lining up. And then the last super picky thing I notice is that the third book says Scholastic Press and all the rest just say Scholastic. So if that bothered you, you could try the dragging technique where you just double click it and kind of drag this down so you don't see the word press. Or you could see if that new image, so for example, this new image that I was using does not have the word press in it. So I could go either way. So I could just kind of cut it out like this one, or I could copy a new image. So now as I glance across, they're all pretty well lined up. They all say the same thing. And so that's kind of why I like to do the spines all at once, because you'll notice those things more and you can line things up better. So that's how I make spines for series. I do them all at once. I make sure I bring the image in and instantly hit Control-C or Command-C so I can keep copying and pasting it and cropping. I size them all down, line them up next to each other, and just kind of check that the aesthetic matches across. So that's how I approach spines. Thanks again for checking into this tips and tricks video, and happy bookmaking. Bye.